another one.
All right, this one says, as the only QA in my company, how do I get devs to start unit and integration testing? I'm the only QA member of a development team of 6, and my work gives me a lot of autonomy to improve development processes. I'm fairly new to QA, but I've worked as a developer for a few years before this job. Initially, I started playing around with Playwright and built a test suite that hooked up to our CI CD pipeline. I realized that these tests simply confirm basic functionality, verifying CRUD. CRUD stands for create, read, update, delete. All right. Oh, why did I give myself a pop quiz? What? But I did pass. All right. Let's stop being silly. All right. It says, I realized that these tests simply confirm basic functionality, verifying CRUD, features, permission behaviors, etc., and don't really save any time spent manual testing. Our product works with maps primarily, so automating UI testing is not super helpful. I was thinking about writing more complex UI tests that possibly use database information or hard code inputs exceed expected outputs to get more value out of our automated tests. Sounds like a good idea for things like reports. But after some research, it seems like this type of testing should be done through unit tests, integration tests written in the code. My developer team knows this is a good idea, but they have not implemented it. My question is, how do I get them to start? Should we add tasks to go through each piece of code and start adding unit tests to everything? Do unit tests need to cover every function, method, block of code that serves a single purpose? Is there a productive way QA can help with this process short of actually writing the unit tests myself? If you've helped implement unit tests at your job, I'd love to hear about it. That is an amazing question. So, you're in oh you're in a interesting position, right? Because I agree with you that unit tests are like I don't think code is like I don't think you've actually written code until you actually have unit tests for your code, right? You can in your mind as a developer, you can believe that you've written code, but it's just letters and numbers on the paper on the screen that's trying to do something. But until you can verify that your blocks of code are working as expected, then to me it's not really done, right? It's not done. So, but now the pickle that you're in, right, is to try to convince developers to actually do their full job, not their partial job, because the full job is to test your own work before you hand it off to somebody to test for you, right? There's a few different ways of approaching this. I think you started already by like talking about it and thinking about it and everything like that, right? But here is the fear that eh, what happens when you try to get people to do what they really don't want to do? One, they're either going to lie about it. Two, they're going to do it, but it's going to be the worst effort possible, right? Like when people do stuff because they're being like told to do it. Like let's say you went and you spoke to the managers of the developers and stuff like that, right? And you made a good point on why unit testing is so important and why it must be done, right? And now they order they issue the decree that's saying all code must be unit tested, right? I guarantee you're gonna get unit tests. And I guarantee they're always gonna pass. But when you actually look in the unit test, it's gonna be like the worst unit test that you've ever seen. It's gonna be like stuff that are like so easy to like, I don't know, it's just gonna be a hack job, right? So the strategy that you use is going to be it's gonna be you're gonna have to be very you're gonna finesse it, right? Um I would say I would recommend a couple of books, right? I would recommend Robert C. Martin's Clean Code, and I would also recommend The Clean Coder. Both of those books. So the Clean Code talks about like the one how to have clean code and a very strong emphasis on test driven development and unit tests, right? Um, I think test driven development is a little bit tougher to get people to latch onto, but I like it because of the mindset that it puts it in a testing mindset. You're writing the code in a testable fashion, right? Um, but that one is a little hard. Like if people, especially if they don't even want to write regular unit tests, imagine them trying to write test driven development, right? But I would say get those two books because the second one is about professionalism in the software engineering industry and be a voice, be an advocate, even if you sound annoying, right? It's okay to me. It's okay to sound annoying as long as you're annoying in a forward feeling fashion. What is most annoying to people is the truth that they don't want to follow, that they don't want to do. Right? If you're just like nagging and stuff like that, that's a different type of annoying. But when you're annoying in the sense of because you're telling like you're saying what people know that they should do but they don't want to do, that's a good type of annoying, and I appreciate that type of annoyance, right? And I would say that that would be one of the ways that you can like always talk about unit tests. If something fails, right? If something fails, like, oh, did the unit test fail? That would be my first question. If you found a bug, right? And let me know what you think about this, good guy. If the developers don't have unit tests and you catch a bug, my first question is, oh, did this pass the unit test? Like you know that they don't have unit tests, but you want to rub it in. Like I would rub it in, right? And then let them try to make excuses for why they don't have unit tests in this particular scenario, right? And then you said like, okay, well, now that we know what failed, do you think we can add a unit test around this scenario? And every time something fails, you get them to write a unit test around it. It's not the optimal way, but it's a way to start getting in there, right? Um, that's one of the ways that I would work on getting them to start writing, like rub it in their face. And then if you have access if you have access to doing this, install a code coverage metric, right? See what's the code coverage before people start blasting saying, oh, code coverage isn't the end all be all. Of course it's not. It's just a metric. But if you have 0% versus then that's it, like what case are you making in that case, right? I have like because it's not the end all be all. That means we have no unit test. Like come on, get real, right? So I would say try to install a tool that's going to calculate what's the percentage of code that's covered via the unit test, right? So that's another strategy to and whatever the appropriate meeting for it is, go over the metrics, saying all right, this past sprint there were 10 bugs that we identified. Um, there were 0 unit tests covering it, and our code coverage percentage is 0 or 1 or whatever it is at the time. Like this needs to be addressed because every time there's a code change, that like the unit test needs to be ran to make sure that they're not breaking other functionality in other areas. It's just common sense in development, right? I don't understand like how they can get away without having unit tests. Like I know you have a lot of what was the word you used? You said you had a lot of you have a lot of autonomy improving the development process. I don't know necessarily why, like if you're a QA, like you're QA, I don't know why you have that much power over the development process because like you're not a developer, you are Like I can understand a lot of autonomy over the QA process, but you're not a developer. They should do their job. Like simple as that. They should do their job. Right? So anyways, like that's I don't know, whatever. I would say that's how you'd approach that. Let me see. You also asked how do you get started by having them write their first unit test. That's the best way to get started. Write your first damn unit test. Simple as that. Now, the so you say the unit tests need to cover every function, method, block of code that serves a single purpose as much as possible. Unit tests are not going to cover everything. There's something that's just like pretty much impossible. But you want to get a high code coverage that like of the like make sure the unit test is actually testing the function, like the functions of the like the functionality. Like when I was trying to get developers to focus on unit tests, I was saying, all right, this is what the acceptance criteria is, right? You guys can write a million unit tests. You guys can write a million unit tests, but the unit test that I want to see should be focused on what your code does to address the acceptance criteria, right? Before you just send it over to QA and then we send it right back to you saying, okay, something's not working, right? Try to focus your unit test on covering the acceptance criteria and then whatever else you want from there, all right? And that would be to the smallest bit possible. It's not like you're not writing an automation test that I would write. You're writing like the different components of the acceptance criteria that you had to build, right? Those need to be unit tested, okay? And a productive way to, I think I've answered the part about a productive way for QA to help with this process. You don't have to write the unit test yourself, but you should definitely take all the metrics that there are about the overall health of the quality of the software that you guys are building and report that in the sprint reviews to the stakeholders, right? If they don't want to settle internally, let everybody know that the bad quality of work that you believe that is being produced, right? Simple as that. And lastly, like for the existing code, you could add tasks to go through it, but I would say like without unit tests, your software is going to be very buggy, right? So as you find the bugs, you're going to be adding, you're going to be going back and you're going to be adding those unit tests anyway. So make sure whenever there's a bug found, there's also a unit test added to it. Going forward, I would make sure that I would not approve a code review if there's not corresponding unit tests to go with it. All right. So that is that. Hopefully that helps, and hopefully you get your unit tests added very, very shortly. All right.
If you enjoyed the fascinating information shared in this video and you want more, be sure to hit the subscribe button to Tech Coach Ralph to be notified for new videos. Enigmatic Joker.